This is Tim,
And Mulele.
and this is Critiquing Comics. Welcome to Critiquing Comics. This is Tim in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, with Mulele in Tokyo. How are you?
I'm good. You?
Okay. A little bit of throat issue, but mostly okay. Yeah, so we got a comic from Alana Tran, who lives in California. And I guess this comic is called Tong Hua in Chinese. It was a little unclear to me about the title of this comic, but the About page says that's what it's called. But the URL is scribbleinc.tumblr.com, and all of the strips say Assimilation at the top of them, and so I was a little confused about what to call this. Or apparently from the About page, Assimilation is sort of the title of a segment of it. This site has book 1 and book 2 of the strip on it, but it seemed like all the strips in both books said Assimilation on them. The About page says that Tong Hua Assimilation is the prequel to Tong Hua with Words, but I don't know where with words is. I never found it on here. But what this is, it's a story of a society with a lot of anthropomorphized animals living there, and in particular the kids. Now, what I really didn't get was that the main character, Karen, her father is a horse and her mom is a monkey and she's a donkey, and I don't know how that works at all. But yeah, the biology doesn't quite work. But yeah, now I read some of book 1 and some of book 2, and book 2 was definitely an improvement on book 1, I thought. In book 1, especially the first few pages, I found it really hard to understand what was happening. And also, this kind of the strip was a little bit hard to read, both in that I wasn't quite sure what was going on or what the point of it was, and also because the strips are a little too small on the page. Of course, I could have just zoomed in the browser. I suppose that does work nowadays. But and now the size problem was still a little bit of an issue in book 2, but in book 2 the art was a lot smoother, and it was interesting because at first, even in the beginning of book 2, I felt like the strips were kind of doing a comedy setup for something that wasn't really funny and didn't even quite seem like it was supposed to be funny. But as book 2 went on, it didn't really matter whether it was funny or not, because I became more interested in the story. Sort of the dynamics of how the characters were reacting to each other became interesting. I'm not quite sure. I think it might have been a beluga whale. This character Oishi, who kind of comes in from, comes into the neighborhood with her parents, and Karen starts out being friends with her, and then some issues come up with her. And then, kind of out of nowhere, we found out that, I don't know if you got this far, the sheep character, whose name I'm kind of blanking on, turns out to be trans.
Okay. No, far.
Everyone assumes that the sheep is a girl, and then the beluga whale family is invited over for dinner to the sheep family's house, and the father introduces the character as his son,
Hmm.
and Oishi is surprised by that and blurts out that everyone has been assuming that she was a girl, and the father is not comfortable with that, and he's kind of angry about that. And so there's another plot line here about that character's gender identity. But yeah, I felt that in book 2 it started to get pretty interesting, whether or not it was funny. I don't know. What did you get out of it?
I felt that there were sometimes setups that had no payoffs, and I think part of the problem here is that the 4-panel format that this is in isn't the right format for it. Really, it really should have more panels per
installment.
Yeah, per installment. Thank you. I don't necessarily want to say per page. It can be as many pages as it needs to be, but the scenes need to be a little bit fuller or richer, because there does seem to be a point that it comes to, maybe a page or two later, that the first page was the setup for, and so all of that should be on maybe one page, or at least not have the feeling of a flat ending on the first page, and then maybe some time passing on the next page. It lacks cohesion when it's told that way. So it really should be one scene or one structured thing.
Yeah, well, and this format also, I think, kind of contributed to my feeling that it was setting up a joke.
Yeah,
and then it wasn't funny.
yeah. That I was having trouble with that at first too. In book 1, it seemed that at the beginning, especially, there was no formatting, and so the characters are kind of floating, and there was a lot of there were no panel separations really to speak of, and it was really hard to discern who was doing what at what time. The timing of it was kind of all over the place, and so the artist is or is one person, artist writer. So the creator began to focus to one format, and although this is maybe not the correct format for the story they want to tell, it is better than what they had in the first book. I think it just needs to be thought through a little bit more. When you're writing a 4-panel comic in Japan, sorry, I'm going to go from that perspective because I know that a little bit better than newspaper dailies in America. You want the setup, the complication, the twist, and then the end, or the twist and then the punchline. But it doesn't seem to quite follow that here. And so if that is the intent of the artist here, then they're missing the punchline every time. But if it is not the intent of the artist to do it that way, then they should have more panels on the page, or at least come to some resolution of the moment. Whether it's set up in punchline, or it's conflict, change, resolution, however you want to format it, as long as it has some kind of structure there. Here, it seems to be kind of hit or miss, mostly miss. Mm. Yeah. But the artwork is smoothed out a lot. The word balloon placement has been formatted much, much better in the second book than in the first book. And everything's much more simplified. It's and dynamic, I think, is a good word here. Hmm. By the way, the whale's name is Oishi.
Yeah.
That's a problem in Japanese.
Yeah. Where it means delicious.
Yeah. But I don't know if that's a gag or if that's just it has a different meaning in Chinese. But anyway.
Well, another thing that I found a little puzzling, there's a character who's mostly in just the first book, whose name is Ahtoh, Ahtoh, and for some reason his name is always in all caps, and I couldn't understand why that was. It was starting to annoy me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think the artist is going to, well, as the artist formats their work more and more and sets up their I guess rules of storytelling or solidifies them, that kind of stuff won't happen anymore. Although I kind of feel that it would benefit from a font rather than hand writing the dialogue. Towards the end of the strip, the writing is fairly clear, and I think the artist is beginning to vary the approach on the artwork a lot more. I mean, some of the artwork is actually quite nice towards the end of what's uploaded. And I think the artist is beginning to really understand the language of the comic. I don't know that I don't think that the gag part is there, but
yeah, it's not clear to me if she's intending for there to be gags or not. It's sort of odd. Or maybe she did it first and then she sort of abandoned that approach as it became a little bit more of a drama.
Yeah, no. The artist in the About page mentions the comic strip For Better or For Worse. And I read that when I was in like junior high school or something for a while. I liked the art style, but the story itself always felt flat. Like there was a gag for the creator, but not for the rest of us. And if this artist is following that artist's style, then this could be a problem. I don't want to bag on For Better or For Worse, or maybe I'm actually confusing it with Kathy, which I thought was pretty dreadful.
Well, yeah, For Better or For Worse is the comic about the Patterson family in Canada, which was a comic that where there was forward motion of time and the kids grew up and it became a pretty interesting comic.
Okay, I must have missed that part.
Okay.
But maybe I am thinking of Kathy. But anyway,
yeah, Kathy was the yeah.
Anyway, the artwork in the beginning of the comic, not so good. The artwork at the end, really, really good. But the artwork as the background of the comic page, like on the site, maybe needs to be updated a bit. It's a bit of an eyesore, um, and doesn't match what the comic itself is.
Mm.
Black and white comic with really nice line art. The art in the background is a map of the island or the area where they all live, but it's kind of distracting in that it looks like it was drawn with a mouse
Hmm.
while the artist's style was still a little bit underdeveloped. So I would say either make a new map or make this a black and white image or something to push it into the background where it's supposed to be. Because it really pops forward when the comic itself is black and white.
What do you think of that little animation at the top?
The animation at the top, um, actually, I think it's cute by itself, but it's a little distracting.
Hmm.
Um, because this really should be just about the comic, just the comic itself,
Hmm.
and anything else in the background or the logo should not detract from the comic. So the comic itself should be front and center, not stuck to the left of the page. I'm assuming you've got that in your browser as well.
Stuck to the left. Well, let's see. Ooh, okay. I just closed the bookmark bar in Firefox, and the comic got bigger, so that kind of solved that problem,
I see.
or at least made it a little easier to read. Um, but stuck to the left. I don't know. I think it's that part's okay. But yeah, maybe the animation isn't really necessary on every page. It might be better to just have less stuff above the comic so that there's no need to scroll some of these pages.
Yeah. Well, hmm. Yeah. I kind of like my comics front and center with nothing really distracting behind them or on top of them. Having a title is necessary, but the title is kind of not legible.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's Chinese or what that is. Or it might. I don't know. Is that in Taiwan? I know there's some kind of a phonetic system that they use sometimes, but I'm really not sure what that is between the characters' faces.
Yeah, I feel like a hypocrite for saying it, but if the comic is in English, the title should also probably be in English.
Hmm.
Um, but here, I don't know what to call the comic book aside from Assimilation, which is at the top of every comic. I don't think the word assimilation here really helps the comic itself. Um, Maybe as a chapter title is fine, but to have that omnipresent um, detracts from any other issue uh, that the comic is trying to tackle. And assimilation, I always think of the Borg. Um, Now I know it's probably cultural assimilation rather than uh, Borg assimilation, but still, yeah. So my advice would be to just um, remove all the superfluous stuff from the comic. The way the comic is being drawn currently is quite beautiful and quite professional. The writing needs to be a little bit sharper if you're going to stick with the four panel format, and it needs to have a little bit more of a punchline or an ending every four panels if you do that. Otherwise, it is a nice comic.
Yeah. So by the time this goes up, I guess your comitia will have passed. But anything you want to say about how your comic stuff is going lately?
Uh, well, I mean, I should say that I've begun to trust that I will get money every month. Um,
Ooh. Like
so
from doing comics?
no, not
Oh,
not from doing
no.
comics.
Okay.
No.
No, from the other situation. Okay.
Yeah. So my former employer has not missed a payment to me. So as my life begins to stabilize after 6 months,
Mm.
um, I'm able to focus a little bit better on MindGator, which is now several months overdue. Um, and so that's coming to an end. And I keep putting up updates like, "Hey, it'll be ready in April. Hey, it's June." But now we're at the end of July, and I'm just like, "Well, fuck, maybe the end of August." And I really, really hate that because I launched the Kickstarter in November of last year, and so a year for 40 something pages is really not good. But I've been through a shit ton of stuff this year, so I'm kind of like, don't panic too much about it. Just focus on the stuff to keep your life together, and then, um, well, do the comic so you're satisfied, and put it out when it's ready.
Hmm.
And but aside from that, um, I have been doing these kind of pay the rent comics, which are very short, real life stories about ghosts. And I just completed the third one, um, and there are only four in this series. But after this third one, I'm ready to finish. I'm ready to finish the MindGator comic and push that through. I want to do that before I hit the fourth Ghost comic.
Mm.
They're only 16 pages, but and they take about 10 days, 10 to 15 days to produce. So they're actually very, very fast for me anyway. Um, but yeah, the third one will be coming out at Komitia. So far, these comics are only in Japanese. Otherwise, I'd put them on my website and really. But they are specifically made to support my rent
Mm-hmm.
because I'm still very, very short on cash. I don't know. For some reason, the Japanese government thinks I've got a lot of money to pay them, like health insurance and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm finding that too.
Yeah.
It's like, how much money do you think I made last year?
Yeah, and well, for me, it's you do know that I'm currently suing my former employer and have no job at the moment, right? That I am living kind of. It's not even a check at this point. But they're just going to look at me and go, "I'll just pretend I didn't hear that." And it's like, no, hear it, please. But anyway, aside from all these woes, news stories, yeah, I'm making comics. I'm happier than I've been in years, and more comics are coming. The ghost story thing, I meant to say, the English version will be out in November, and that'll be up on my website.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll share links and all that stuff, previews and whatnot, at that time.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Social media.
Twitter at Mulele Redux. Also, Instagram at Mulele Redux. Facebook, Mulele Redux. And the website is mulele.com. That's it. Mulele.
Okay. I'm Decon Comics on Twitter. And of course, the website is deconstructingcomics.com. And on Facebook, we have both a page and a group, so you can search for Deconstructing Comics there. This podcast comes out on the second and fourth Thursdays of the month. And if you'd like us to critique your comic, send a PDF or a link to mail@deconstructingcomics.com, and we'll read at least 30 pages of it and talk about it here. So till next time, this is Tim.
Just a moment. I've got a question.
Okay.
So the last time I asked you a little bit about what you were eating over there, and I just gotta, are there any foods that you're looking forward to eating still? That you got a plan? It's like I'm gonna go there and I'm gonna get that thing before I leave.
Waffles. You can find waffles in Japan, of course, but they're just not quite the same. I'm intending at some point to go to some restaurant and just get a nice big waffle and sop it in maple syrup and eat that.
Yeah, they're not as good in Japan, and they cost like 3,000 yen just to get two. It's weird. It's you pay $30 for waffles, but anyway, are we talking like an IHOP experience or?
Yeah,
or
something like that.
Okay, so you just want to get some waffles.
Yeah, and probably on a different occasion some French toast also, but.
With French toast, make that at home. That's just eggs and toast.
Yeah, I suppose I could do that too. I need to expand my cooking repertoire.
Yeah. There's that. But fair enough, man. But yeah, like always, pictures, please, of your food.
Okay, well, I did put the tenderloin on Facebook. I'm going to try to remember to put other stuff up as I eat it.
Good man. I will be pressing like on some of those photos.
Okay. All right. So I already said this is Tim.
And Mulele.
And thanks for listening to Critiquing Comics.